All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us this month for another Sugar Market Academy webinar. This month, we will be talking about Form Builder. Bree will be our subject matter expert. Bree, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off.
Hi, everyone. So as Shara mentioned, we are actually going to be going over the form builder today. And actually, if you guys weren't aware, there was an update to the form builder a couple of weeks ago that's kind of changed a lot about it. So really today we're going to focus less on how to use the form builder, which we'll go through a little bit as well. But we're really going to focus on these new features and how to take advantage of them. So just a breakdown of what we're going over today. We're going to do some introductions in just a second. And then we're going to talk about what's the reason you should use market forms. I'm a trainer, so I still get a lot of questions about, well, why should I use these forms over my web forms? So we're going to go a little bit more in depth with that before we jump into some of the new features that we have in the form builder. Then after that, we are going to go into the system. We're going to go straight into Sugar Market and kind of walk through some of these changes that we're seeing in the form builder and put them all to good use so that you guys can get a more visual look at it. And then, of course, some resources to round it all out. If at any time you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in, I believe, the chat, or is it Q&A? I don't remember which one it is. So Shari, you can correct me on that. But
I'll be
yeah,
here
at
to
any
answer
time.
them anyway,
It's
Brie. I'll be here on hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's Q&A. So the chat functionality does not work for some reason for Zoom webinars. So just if you have questions, comments, concerns, additions, just go ahead and add it to the QA.
Awesome. So for us presenting today, I'll let Shara introduce herself in a second, but my name is Bree and I'm a marketing automation consultant for Sugar Market. Been at Sugar for about 5.5 years now. Eat, breathe, sleep, Sugar Market. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Some of you might know me. You might have worked with me before because I've been here for forever. So Shara, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Shara Rouse. For those of you that do not know me, I am an implementation and education manager here at Sugar with Sugar University. I have been working with partners as well as some of our internal teams like professional services, customer support, and customer success on enablement as well. And I will be interfacing more with our partners in the months to come. So more training and education with partners. And I think that's about it.
Awesome. Yeah, Shar is the reason that we're here, our lovely host who is helping us learn more about Sugar Market. Thank goodness. So, alrighty, so let's dive in. So, why should you use Sugar Market forms as opposed to the web forms you already have access to or not using forms at all? So, Sugar Market forms can really be used in three ways. One, you have the ability where you can create your Sugar Market form, publish it, and then put it directly on a Sugar Market landing page. No mess, no fuss. It's drag and drop. You just drop and put it directly on there. The second way you can use them is that you actually have the ability where you can create these Sugar Market forms, and when you publish them, it's going to give you a code. Then you can take that code and put it directly on your website. So, really, the main benefit of this that we're going to touch on a little bit more in a minute is that we have the ability this way that when someone fills out our website form, they automatically come into Sugar Market and it's going to allow us to update their information, create a new record for them if we need to, as well as execute actions off of that information. And the last way you can use a Sugar Market form, and this actually has to be paired with something we call the external form connector, which you can find information about on our lovely Sugar Club and in Sugar U. We're not going to go through it today, but it essentially allows you to connect your external web form to Sugar Market so that when someone fills out your external web form, it passes through some channels and it ends up in Sugar Market and you can still execute actions and save the information, directly to your system. So, biggest thing that is going to be the benefit of using any of these types of forms is that you have the ability where you can map these form fields directly to fields in your CRM or just in Sugar Market if you're just using Sugar Market to capture this information. So that way we can keep hold of this information and use it for reporting. We can use it for segmentation. That way it's not just a thing that is updated on a form and then we lose it. And then sometime in the future, we hope that we have it back, but unfortunately we don't. And then finally, as I mentioned, you also have the ability where you can execute automated follow-up actions based on form responses. So this can be based off of anytime someone answers the form in general, or you have the ability to route specific actions based on how someone answers the questions on the form. So for example, if you ask me what my favorite color is, and I say my favorite color is pink, you have the ability where you can say, okay, well, if someone answers the question and they say that their favorite color is pink, let's add them to this nurture that talks specifically about all of our pink products. Okay, so let's get into our new form builder features. So if you're familiar with the old form builder, we got a new facelift, like I said, within the past couple of weeks. It's got a bunch of new, cool, fun things that you can do with it that really kind of improve the user experience. So we're going to go through some of those. And then, like I said, we are going to show you some live in the system as I set up a form with you. So biggest thing that changed is the updated user interface. So creating your form, designing your form, and managing forms is now easier than it has ever been. Not only does it look different and cleaner, but it actually looks a lot like the email builder. So that's going to make it much easier for you guys to navigate because now you don't have to learn two different builders. Now you've pretty much got the email builder and the form builder, which kind of mimic one another. The cool thing about this too is that before, anytime you added a field to your form, it had to be configured immediately. Essentially, like the minute that you added it on there, if you didn't configure it, you would have to exit out of it. Now you can actually add the fields on there and they're created as automatic placeholders so that you can build out your structure of your form before you even jump into setting up the fields and mapping and all that stuff. And then in addition, we now have a new auto save feature that instead of having to click that save button in the bottom corner, which is still there for you if you're like me and you're anxious and you like to, always be on top of everything. Or on top of everything. You always want to make sure that everything is saved. Instead, you basically can just click out of your elements and it's going to auto save it for you immediately. All right, so next thing that was updated is the UTM parameter. So this is actually something that we hear from a lot of our customers as something that they need with the form builder. So we've always had the ability to map back and capture information from UTM parameters. However, prior to this last update, it was only possible when you were using a form that was hosted on a Sugar Market landing page. With this last update, that has been changed. So now you have the ability to essentially capture that information directly from, excuse me, guys, I'm so sorry. You have the ability to capture that information directly from the URL and save it in fields for the UTM parameter tracking. Important thing to note with this, if you are wanting to use these UTMs and this mapping in your form, the form itself, when you put it on your website, you have to make sure that it is not hosted in an iframe type, I guess, widget or whatever you would call it on your form. Just don't put it in an iframe on your website. The reason being is basically that means it's not actually hosted on your website. It's like a little window into where the form itself is hosted. So that way it can't have the ability to grab those UTM parameters from the URLs and kind of map back that visitor information. And for anybody wondering what UTM parameters are, essentially, these are parameters that are added to the end of URLs that give us information about how someone got to this form or accessed the form. So we'll have information like the source, the content that was with the form, the medium, all this kind of information that you can define so that you get better information about where your form submissions are coming from. All right, next. And if you have used the form builder in any capacity over the last few years, you're going to be very excited about this one because I know I was. So now we have the option where you can use confirmation email templates created as trigger email templates to automatically send a follow-up when somebody fills out a form. Previously, you had to kind of go this little convoluted route a little bit where you had to create a nurture, then you had to have a catch-all rule that then added all of these people into the nurture as an automated follow-up. And it took a lot more steps than needed for you to be able to send a confirmation email. So they have improved this. And now we have the ability where you can just create your trigger email template, add that to your form. And that way, when someone fills out the form, automatically, as soon as their submission comes into the system, they will be sent that follow-up email. You don't have to worry about them being added into a nurture. One and done. So we will go through how to create these on our little demo in just a second, but you can create them one of two ways. One is that you can go into your manage area for your emails, and on the little sidebar where it shows you, emails, email templates, alert templates, all of that stuff, there will be an option for trigger email templates, and you can create it directly in there. Or when you're actually creating your form, there's going to be an option where there's a little plus sign where you can create that trigger email template directly from the form itself. So if you forget to do it, you don't have to be like, oh man, now I got to save my form, leave, come back. You can do it right there. And they can be reused for literally whatever form you need them to be. So it's not like you have to have a million of them, which is nice as well. All right, finally, auto updating forms. Now, this is probably the most important and the best change that we got with this new updated form builder. Previously, if you've ever used the Sugar Market forms, if you took the form and put them on a landing page, or alternatively, you took that form code and put it on your website, then every single time that you made an aesthetic change to your form, whether you added a new field, you removed a field, maybe you edited a field to make it say something different, maybe you edited some color. Doesn't matter if you change anything aesthetically about the way that the form looks or operates, then you had to then republish your form, grab that code, and then either replace that code on the website or go into your landing page and refresh the form so that the new version of the form would appear. Otherwise, your form would stay the same as the one you originally put on the website. A lot of extra work and definitely a little bit of a headache for my marketers out there. So now they have since updated the builder where if you go in and you make any changes to your form after you've already added it to your site or your landing page, all you have to do is republish it and those changes will automatically update on your form. No more having to replace the code. All you have to do is the page that you're on, click refresh, and guess what? If your button was white and you want to change it to blue, it's going to be blue the next time that you look at that page. So very, very, very useful and definitely saves a lot of times and a lot of headaches for us. In addition to that, if you'd used these forms previously, you probably saw that the form code was pretty lengthy. It was a huge HTML code. That has since changed. The form code is much smaller and more condensed. So now it's not going to take up a huge spot on your website where you just have this big block of code. All right, so that was quick and easy. So now we are going to actually go into the form builder and talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to give you some of the tips as we go through it. Personally, just so you guys know, form builder is my #1 favorite thing to play around with in Sugar Market. When I was first learning many years ago when I joined Sugar, I spent a lot of time in form builder just making forms because it's good practice. So I'm excited to walk you guys through this, especially with all of our fun changes. So just 1 second, and I am going to switch my screen share so that you guys are able to see my form.
We had a very happy person. I think it was Therese and one of our guests on here. Very happy that we have updated our URL, the code for the forms to be a URL that auto updates. So yeah,
good. Yeah,
that is a great update.
Yeah, definitely probably the #1. All of them are cool, but that one, it made all of us on the team like literally flip for excitement because it's something that we've always wanted and finally it's here. Alrighty, so for this form that I'm going to walk you guys through, I have already created some parts of the form just to make this go a little bit faster, but I'm going to make sure that we focus on the things that I really think that you guys should know. Some of these are going to focus on the things that we have updated with the new form builder, but some of these are just kind of tips and tricks that I know about forms, I use with my forms, and I want to kind of share with you guys to be able to use these in the future. All right, so first things first, when you're creating your form, you have the first thing on here, which is your setup step. Your setup step, of course, is going to be where you add in your name, the folder, then it's going to ask you to put in the form type. As this was previously, the form type is pretty much just for internal categorization, with the exception of one option. Now, most of these that you see in here, you click on them, you choose them for your form. All it does is when you're looking in your manage area, you can look at it and say, oh, I put this as a contact us form. Doesn't change anything about the form itself, with the exception of the option for event. Event is actually going to try and connect you with an event in the Sugar Market events module So if you're not using the events module for this particular form, even if it is an event form, but you're not connecting it to an event in Sugar Market, just use a different type. You can use any of the other types. They will not cause any sort of changes. It's only event that's the one that's going to try and connect this with a different module. So for today, we're going to go. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, email preferences will actually add the option for a question to map to the unsubscribe field. So that's the only difference in there. Yeah.
So I thought that as well, but actually, this is one of the things that I missed on my slides about the new update. That is actually apparently available on all form types now.
Oh, really? They've updated that?
Yeah. I noticed that earlier when I was going through it. Awesome. Okay, so next is your description. Yeah, don't listen to James. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm just kidding. He literally knows everything about Sugar Market, so we'll trust it. So then the description, that's again 100% for your internal use. And then you have your two settings checkboxes. So one that we talked about previously is these URL parameters. If you enable this, which I have already on this form, what you're going to see is on your build step, it's going to have these parameters listed. Then you're going to have the ability to map these parameters back to whatever fields essentially you want that information to go back to in your external CRM. So we'll talk about that a little more when we get into that step. But just a good thing to highlight here. And of course, you've got these nice little things that are going to help you with if you need to refresh on what these things do. You also have the option for double opt-in. This is really big for my European customers out there. If you have to adhere by GDPR rules, essentially double opt-in is here for the ability for you guys to use it. If you're one of my US customers, you do not have to use this option. Essentially what it does, and the main differences, is in the US, we're pretty wide open. Someone fills out our form, 99% of the time people will add you to a mailing list because we have that ability with the way that our rules are, pan-spam rules and all that kind of stuff. In the UK and in the EU, however, it's a little bit different. So there, essentially, everybody is opted out until they give their explicit consent that they want to receive your emails. So what double opt-in does is when somebody fills out your email, rather than them automatically be listed as opted in, they're automatically listed as unsubscribed. Then instead of them getting your follow-up email, they get a system-generated email that says, hey, do you want to receive emails from, client name? Do you want to receive emails from Sugar Market? If they say yes, then they will then be opted in and they can receive any emails from you moving forward. But if they say no, or they ignore the email that's sent to them, they cannot receive any emails from you and they are forever going to be listed as opted out until they decide to opt in at another time. So for my US people, not necessary, probably something you can stay away from, but from my EU people, great thing to have, part of GDPR compliance. All right, so we go to next. You do still have the options where you can choose from your templates. You've got your pre-built out templates, and then you also can save and pull in any custom templates that you create. So keep your branding consistent. You can also still just duplicate the forms, and that works as well. For today, we're going with blank because I've already built this out. So, okay, so now our build step. So this is the spot where we see the change the most. If you remember the old build step, there was like a little sidebar over here that you drag and dropped from into the middle canvas here. All of that fun stuff had to be configured right away. However, in this case, we've changed it around a little bit. Look familiar? It looks just like the email builder. Spoiler alert. So it actually even has elements that are on this sidebar similar to the email builder. First option you're going to see are your basic blocks, and these words are going to be familiar if you do use the email builder, which are your rows and your columns. This is going to allow you to add additional rows and columns to your form for the way that you want to structure everything out. So I am going to add some additional information to this form. But before we do that, let's back up and talk about what do we want this form to be about? Because that's the important thing to note when you're asking questions on a form. So personally, what I'm going to make this form about is we're going to create this dummy form that is asking people about the Sugar Market Academy webinar and asking them, what kind of information do you want to learn in our next Sugar Market Academy webinar? So it's going to give us some fun options. So we're going to build that out together. Now, just to prepare for that, I am going to add some rows in here where I can add my additional questions. You can also add questions to the same row, so don't think that you're limited to that. And of course, the columns are going to allow you to add up to 2 or 3 to basically be able to put 2 or 3 fields on one row. And you can see this little line that keeps coming up over here. that's going to be our auto save that's kicking in for us. Now, we also did see our UTM parameters down here. Don't worry, I'll touch on those in just a second. So our second option on our sidebar is going to be where our elements are now hosted. So these are all of the field types we can use, as well as basic elements, which are just going to be basic text, horizontal line, and spacer. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the field types with you guys today because these have stayed pretty much the same since the last form builder, but I'm going to touch on a few of them that I think are important and are going to help us out with our form that we're building today. So let's get into adding our forms or adding our extra fields so I can show you guys a little bit more about how this works. So one thing that I want to add on a field, on a form like this, is I want to have a question that basically asks, do you have any additional feedback for us today? Similar question to if you're asking someone, how can we help you today? A message that you would have on a form. So for those kinds of fields, I am going to use a multi-line text. But now you're going to see I can just drag and move this to the spot that I want to add it, and then I can leave it there for now. I can go back and configure it at another time and add my other fields as needed. So very useful because I can build out the structure of my form before going into the nitty gritty and having to say, map everything. I just want to know how it's going to look before I jump in. For this, actually, we are going to jump in right away. So So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the field that you added, and it's going to pull up the little context menu below to work on the questions on your form, maybe add the questions, map them correctly. You're going to click on settings, and it's going to pull up in your sidebar where you're then going to put in your information. As you can see, there's a placeholder field name that's added when you add the field to the form and you don't configure it yet. In our case, we are going to call this additional feedback. So the field name is the internal name for the field. As you guys probably know, this is what we see on our end. And then the field label in question is what the customer sees on their side of things. So we are going to enter, do you have any additional feedback today? You of course have field placeholder text. If you want to add any sort of example text or anything like that, totally up to you. For today, I'm going to leave it as is. So then we have mapping to a field. Now, you guys who are on this call who have used the form builder might already be familiar with this concept, but it's something I always really like to drill into my customers' heads because this is probably the most important part of Sugar Market forms. Mapping back to fields is the way that you're going to have the ability to save this information in fields within your CRM so that you can use this information later on for segmentation purposes or for reporting purposes. Basically, it saves this information as part of the record. You do not have to map everything back to a field, but just know that even though you will always be able to, you will always be able to see how this person answered the question on the form. If it's not mapped back to a field, you're not going to be able to report on it or use it for segmentation. You're just going to be able to see the results. So to map back to a field, you are going to turn this on, and then you are going to search for the field that you want to save this information into. And it's super easy to do this. You're just going to start typing in. So I created a field called additional feedback, Sugar Market Academy right here. Choose that, and then it's going to prompt me and ask me if I want to overwrite the data. So as you guys probably know, Sugar Market forms recognize everything by the email address. So it's going to do everything in its power to not create duplicates. If we have bbridges@sugarcrm.com already in our system, already in our CRM, and the name is listed as Brianna Bridges. Now let's say that on this form, I fill it out. I still use bbridges@sugarcrm.com, but this time I put my name as Bree Bridges. If overwrite is turned on for the first name field, then what's going to happen is my name is going to change from Brianna to Bree, because that is what we told the field to do. If overwrite is turned off, you're still going to have a record that I filled out this form and said my name was Bree, but we're going to leave the name as Brianna because we don't want to overwrite that info. In this case, I'm just going to leave it on. It doesn't really matter. Awesome. All right, so we're going to click out of that so that it saves the changes. Now, we're not going to stop there. We're going to add some questions in the in-between so that we can make sure that we're asking the information we need. So one thing that I want to know as a result of this form is I want to know what Sugar Market module someone would want to learn more about. I want them to basically be able to pick from a list of options. So we are going to use a drop-down field for this. Now in this drop-down field, we're going to click on our option. We're going to, of course, click on the settings option. And we are going to name this, we're just going to call this subject. We're going to make it easier on ourselves. So again, this is just what we're seeing on the internal side. And then we'll ask our question, what sugar market module would you like to learn more about? So you still have the option in here to map to a field. Again, I am going to do this for this purpose. And I believe the field is called subject SMA. I've got my overwrite turned on if I need to. And then we're going to scroll down, and this is where we're going to see our list options. So this is where you're going to put in your options for your drop-down list or your pick list options. So there are some sugar market choices. If you click into here, this is basically going to pre-fill in things for you so you don't have to type them out yourself. For example, if you don't want to type out all 50 states, you're in luck, you can click states and it auto-populates it for you. In our case, we're going to manually enter our values because the values are not pre-selected values from Sugar Market. So there's two columns here that are really important to pay attention to. The first column is display value. This is what the customer sees on their end. When they are looking at the form, they will see, in this case, the value of yes. The return value is what we see on our side, as well as what the system sees when it's saving the information. So one thing that's really important to keep in mind is we need to make sure that this return value matches the value that needs to be sent back into our external CRM. If it doesn't, then nothing is going to be saved in that field. So as you guys probably know, if you use a lot of the CRM, there are a lot of pick lists, and pick lists can be very picky. Like they can be the front end of the pick list, even though I see the value of email builder, the back end of the value could be EMB. So we have to make sure that back end value is the one that matches. Display value, you can put whatever you want. So for this purpose, I'm going to show you guys how, if you're like, well, I don't have access to my CRM, so I don't really know. Essentially, I'm not really sure what the return value should be. So I'm going to show you guys real quick how you can find this information in Sugar Market, because it's very useful when you're mapping this information back. So we're going to open up another tab. We're going to go to Sugar Market. Up in the top right corner, you're going to click on your little admin menu, and you're going to click on admin. Scroll down to the bottom, and you're going to see the section labeled CRM Administrator. Under here, you're going to see field definitions and then a list of options. I apologize if you guys can hear my cat. He's decided that it's playtime and he's meowing really loudly behind me, so fun. But this is going to list all of the tables that you have in Sugar Market, as well as all of the fields that are on those tables. So for us, we're pretty much usually going to go into leads and contacts, because leads and contacts are the only things we can map to from the report builder. I'm sorry, not the report builder, the form builder. Sorry, the cat's really throwing me off back here, guys. All right, so when we click into here, you're going to see all of our fields. Now, when it's a pick list field and we want to be able to see the options and make sure we're mapping them back correctly, find the field. So we've got subject SMA, which is ours, double click into it. And then there's going to be a little drop box right here called list properties. Click on that, and this is going to show you the list item name and the list item value for each option, so that I can see the list item value is what I need to map back in my form to make sure that it goes back into the correct field in CRM. So as you can see, email builder, even though it says this on the front, the back end version has an underscore rather than a space. Nurtures is the same, but then you can see there's some differences. So this is lead scoring, this is scoring. So we're going to make sure we set everything up accordingly. So I'm going to start with just putting in our options, and then we'll put in our return value.
Can you also show again where the overwrite option is in there as well, when you get a chance?
Yes. So after you map a field, overwrite is going to be directly below the map to field option.
There you go, Dan.
Yeah. So in this case, I mean, you'll see it in different places. Here, it's a little weird because it's above the list options, but in other fields, it's usually towards the bottom, pretty much just directly under the mapping option. Okay, lead scoring and other is the last one. So I can manually type in these other options if I want to. However, you can just click these little arrows and it maps over all of the display values to the return values. But I need to make sure that these return values map what is in here. Luckily, I have these memorized, but I'm going to show you guys. So email builder, like I said, it has an underscore instead of a space. We are going to erase that space and replace it with the underscore because we want to make sure that it maps what it's supposed to be in the system. So scoring, we're going to need to remove lead, and then other is other. Now you do have the option where you can set a default value. I skipped over this on the last one, but this is basically a value that is pre-selected when somebody's filling out the form. So think about like when you visit someone's website and you're filling out a form and at the bottom it has a checkbox that's already checked that says, I would like to receive updates for this person's newsletter. That's a default value. It's pre-checked for you. In this case, you can see it's pulling up email builder as the first option. I don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to add an additional option to the top that just says please select to make it a little easier to look at. And I'm going to set that as my default value so that that is the thing that shows up when people first look at this. Awesome. All right. So let's go on to the next part. Now, I asked these people what module they want to learn more about, but one of the options that I gave them is other. Well, if someone answers other, I want them to be, a little more, I guess, I want them to provide a little more information about what other is. What other possible module would you want to learn about? So I'm going to add a field in here that is then going to prompt people to say, if other, then please explain. However, as you guys probably know as marketers, the more fields that are visible on a form, the less likely someone is to fill it out. The longer a form is, we're all people, we know, you look at a super long form and you're like, I'll do it tomorrow, and then you never go back and do it. That's the same kind of scenario here. So what we're going to do is we're kind of going to trick people, but not really. Make it a better user experience is what we're going to call it. But between you and me, we're tricking people. So we are going to add this field onto the form, but we are going to make it conditional, meaning that this field is only going to show if someone selects a particular option from the drop-down value above. Now, right now, conditional fields can only be triggered based off of drop-down fields. So keep that in mind. It has to be a drop-down. Unfortunately, checkboxes checkboxes and radio buttons at this moment don't have that ability. It's just drop-downs. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just adding this as if it's a normal field. We're going to drag and drop single line text on here because I'm going to ask them to explain. So that seems like the right field. Then we're going to go in and configure it again as normal. Let me pull up so we're going to call this one subject other. Then we're going to say, if other, please explain. Then we'll go ahead and we'll map this to a field. And then we can choose whether or not to overwrite, of course. All right. So now this is just on the form. If I go and I preview my form, you can see no matter what I choose, that question is here. If other, please explain, it's going to stay here. So we want to make it to where, we want to make it to where it's conditional. To do that, it's super easy. All you have to do, click on it, and then on your little context menu down here, you're going to see an option for conditional logic, this little tree branch thing. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. If you click on that, it's going to pull up a little sidebar here. And it's going to say the subject other form field will be displayed if the following conditions are met. So we'll say if subject equals other. And that is the only criteria I need for right now. So we're just going to click out of it. It feels weird because it feels like you're not saving. Don't worry, it is saving when you click out of it. And then you're going to see it surrounded by these little dotted lines. So when I go back into the preview, what you're going to see is now you don't see that field. If I choose email builder, you don't see it. If I choose lead scoring, you don't see it. But then the minute I choose other, bam, there's that other field right there. So that's one of the ways that you can use conditional fields in Sugar Market. Super, super cool, super useful. Like I said, you're kind of tricking people in a good way, though, not in a bad way. All righty. So last type of field I'm going to show you guys for this form before we go into the style is I want to show you a different way that we can use these conditional elements. So I'm asking people what module they want to learn more about. I'm asking them, do you want to learn more about the email builder, scoring? Do you want to learn more about the form builder? But those topics are kind of broad. There's a lot of things that go into those options. So what we're going to do is I am then going to give them another drop down that asks them, what particular item from this module would you like to explore more of? So that way we can know, okay, if you're talking about email builder, are you talking about templates? Is that what you want to learn more about? So to do that, again, this is one of those things that I only want to display if someone chooses a specific value. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull over another dropdown right here. We're going to click into our dropdown and edit it. And then we're going to add in our options. So we're going to do subject specific. We're going to do what particular item from this module would you like to explore? And then for this one, I'm actually not going to map this back to a field. One, I don't have a field to hold this information. I could create one real quick, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to. So we're just going to show you that you can create fields and not map them. I can't report off this information, but I can see it later on, which is still going to help me. So then we're going to go down to our display options and to our list options. And even, technically in this case, since I don't have a field I'm mapping back to, the display value and the return value can be the exact same thing because I don't have to take into account what the mapping for the return value is. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those in. Now, what you're going to see is I'm going to add in a variety of options. Now, of course, the first two have to do with emails, but analytics can kind of go with any topic, really. And then I'm going to add in action elements, which is pretty specific to just nurtures. Form submission rules, which again, that's specific to just forms. And then we're going to add in database scoring, which is specific to just lead scoring. Now, these are kind of all over the place, right? How weird would it be? Let's click out of it for a second so you can see. How weird would it be if I chose the option for email builder and then you asked me what particular item from this module would you like to explore? And you gave me the option for form submission rules. Those don't really go together. So we're going to use the other option that we can use for conditional elements. So the one we already saw is that basically based on an answer someone chooses on the main drop-down field, we have the ability to appear another field if they choose a specific option. In this case, we are going to have an option. I'm going to click on it and click on conditional. It's going to give me the option to conditionally display this field's options. This one is different because when you click on it, essentially what it allows you to do is say, if this field above, if the subject field, so we'll say if subject, and then we can choose one of these options. If the subject is email, then only display the options that I choose when somebody chooses this option, if that makes sense. If someone chooses email, I only want to make the following available. So we're going to do templates, templates, A/B testing, and analytics. Then it feels weird because you're not going to actually click anything to save it. So don't worry. You're going to change this to the next one and you're going to say, okay, nurtures, we're going to do templates. We'll do analytics and action elements. Then we'll change this to form builder and we'll do analytics and form submission rules. Change this to lead scoring and we'll do database scoring. And I guess we can do analytics as well. That's fine. And then finally, other. And for other, I don't want anything to appear because if someone chooses other, then they're going to get the field that pops up that says, if other, please explain. So we're going to leave that one blank and we're just going to click out of it. And it's going to tell me, hey, the fields you selected, below, they don't have logic set. So basically, if someone chooses those options, this field is not going to appear at all, which is good because that's what we want. So we're going to go ahead and click apply. And now let's look and see what it looks like. Now, if I click on on the preview, what you're going to see is it's just asking me, we don't even see that other field. If I choose the option for email builder, then guess what? It's going to pull up and let me choose from templates, A/B testing, analytics. If we do form builder, we're going to see analytics or form submission rules. We choose scoring. We got database scoring and analytics. And then if I choose other, boom, it's going to pull up that other field. So very, very cool options that I love to showcase for you guys. Last thing that we're going to look at on here before we move to the next step is going to be our URL parameter mapping. Now, in order to map these URL parameters, it's really easy, or the YouTube parameters, whatever you want to call them. Click on this, and then there's going to be a settings gear that you're going to click on. And then essentially, all you're going to do is these things are already mapped. They're going to pull from the URL, so you don't have to worry about, coming up with values or question names. All you're going to do is map these back to the field that you want to map them back to in your CRM. That's going to pretty much be your option here. Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to the next step, just for the sake of time as well. I love to talk if you guys can't tell. So this next step is going to be your style step. One thing I will point out that throws me off every time I go between these, they look like the same step. So if you go back to your build step, just know that you didn't lose the formatting that you set up. It just looks like you did. It will just adjust in the style step again. It's because this is just telling you how to, the build step is more for setting up the mapping and the structure of your form, as opposed to the style step, which is where you're going to make everything look pretty. So this is pretty much the same, which is awesome. You still click on your each individual element, and you have the ability to come in here and change what you want about it. You know, the formatting, you know, the text, the size, font color, what the background color of the fields looks like, if you want a border or not. You got tons of options here.
The design is just more consistent now with our other designers in the tool. So that's what they tried to do. Our old form builder was actually built far before our current email builder. So now all the builders have the same consistency throughout the system.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I would go through and kind of walk you guys through all these options, but instead of that, for the sake of time, you guys can see that I already preset up 3 fields right here. So here's one of my tips and tricks that not a lot of people really realize when it comes to this. So instead of having to repeat this on every field, one thing that you can do is once you set up one field the way you like it, click into it, like this one right here, click on copy style at the top. Then I can go to a field that doesn't have this formatting, click on that, and then click on paste style. And look, boom, it updates it automatically. So I don't have to worry about going and applying it to everything. I can just drop it in there. And don't worry, this is just showing you the conditional options. It's going to tell you that they're going to be displayed conditionally, like they're not going to be shown obviously on the regular form, but you do have to be able to style them inside the form itself. The only one that I think is going to give me a little bit of fuss with this copy and pasting is this one, because it makes it a little bit smaller. So we're just going to change this height to 50. We'll do a little bigger than that. We'll do 60. Awesome. All right. Our form looks the way we want it to. All good here. We're going to go to next. Now, the action step, everything is pretty much the same as it has been. You always are still going to need to have a redirect to URL for your form. So whether this is a thank you page, it can be a thank you page that's directly on your website. It can be a thank you page you created in the page builder in Sugar Market. It can be the homepage of your website, whatever you want it to be. It does have to have a page to redirect to once the form is submitted. You also have the option to turn on the CRM sync. So what this means is when this is enabled, when somebody fills out this form, not only are they going to come into Sugar Market and the actions are going to be executed and everything's going to be saved, but it also is then they're going to take a pit stop in Sugar Market. And then during the next sync cycle, which runs every 10 minutes, they are then going to be sent all the way over to your external CRM, whether that's SugarCell or a different one. And if they're a new record, it's going to create a new lead for them. Or alternatively, if they're an existing record, it's going to update their existing record based on what options you chose to overwrite. So super helpful. It makes it a lot easier for my marketing people to not have to pass all of the leads manually along to the sales team. They can just be sent right over, and that's sales problems now. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. So then we have the option for confirmation email. So we did already talk about this one, but we are going to kind of explore it a little bit more. So when you click add confirmation email, it's going to give you the option to choose one of your trigger email templates. Like I said, you can create these beforehand or you can create them right on the fly. So you can click on this little plus sign right here and it's going to open up a trigger email template builder so that you can create your template. Otherwise, if you want to create it ahead of time, and I'll show you the one that I've created for this, what you can do is in Sugar Market, so I'll go back to the home page, you're going to go to emails. I don't know where I'm going. You're going to go to emails. And then on your sidebar, you're going to see trigger email templates. Now you can click create in the top right corner to create a new template, or alternatively, you can click on one you already have, which is the one that I created. It's going to walk you through the steps. So you've got your setup step, which is just essentially like, what do you want the subject line to be? Who's the sender information for? Do you want a pre-header? Choose a template if you want to get started with a template. And then create your email. So ours is just very basic. Thanks for your submission. We'll be following up soon. Click complete when you're done. And that's that. Very simple to create the confirmation email, a lot easier than using the Nurture Builder as the follow-up. So we're going to choose our example confirmation email from our options and then click create. And that's that. That's all you have to do there. Then you've got your form alert that is going to allow you to add alerts. You can send them to anybody who has a user in Sugar Market. If you are connected with an external CRM, anybody who has a user in your external CRM is going to have a user in Sugar Market as well. So you can actually send them form alerts. That does not mean they have access to Sugar Market. Don't worry. It just means you can send them alerts and assign records to them. These form alerts, they are Sugar branded. Essentially, they are all going to look pretty much the same. They list every question that is on the form and exactly how the person answered each question. Unfortunately, at this time, these are not customizable. If you want to use customizable ones, you can use the alerts within the Nurture Builder, but these are the easiest ones to go for. And then you still have your field submission rules. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about these, but essentially field submission rules are going to allow us to execute actions based on the way someone filled out a question on the form. So for example, I can say, okay, if somebody filled out the form and they said the subject that they want to see more of equals the email builder, then it's going to prompt me to add an action. With this action, I can add a task, an opportunity, add them to a list, add them to a nurture, remove them from a list or a nurture, send a trigger email just to those people, alert a user, a role, or assign to a specific user. So we'll say I'm going to add this person to a list. We'll just choose Sugar Market Academy new subscriber, create, perfect. You can add additional conditions and actions to this very rule. If you add additional actions, just keep in mind. So if we say, let's add an additional condition. We'll say subject, we'll do subject specific equals templates. Then they have to meet both of these criteria in order to fall into this rule. If I choose email builder and then for my specific, I choose A/B testing, I do not meet this criteria. So keep that in mind. And the way that these field submission rules work as well is if you have multiple rules. So let's say that we have 2 rules. We have the first rule that says, if their email starts with B, then add to nurture A. And then the second rule that we have, a completely separate rule down here, so we can add multiple rules. Let's just add one for the sake of it, if subject equals nurtures. There you go. So it's a completely separate rule. So we have the first one that says, if their email starts with B, then add to nurture A. And then we have a second rule that says, if their first name starts with B, add to nurture B. Well, my name is Bree. My email address is bbridge@sugarcrm.com. I meet both of those rules, right? So when I fill out this form, what's going to happen is I'm going to drop into the first rule. And that's the one that says, if their email starts with B, then add them to nurture A. I'm going to be added to nurture A because I meet that criteria. But then I am going to stay there. This is my new home. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm calling my contractor in the morning. I'm sleeping in my tent tonight. This is my new home. I am not looking any further. So even though I meet the criteria of the next rule, I will not fall into that criteria because I was caught by the first rule already. So keep that in mind as you structure these things. Alrighty. So once you're done with this, you can click publish. Takes a little hot second. So, there we go. And then it's going to give you the new code. Look how much shorter it is. It's so much prettier, so much easier to work with. And we are going to take this and we are going to put it on a Sugar Market landing page. So I've already got one set up for us. Take it. There's our form. And then we're going to publish it so that it's live on this page. We're going to look at our page. So this is what our page looks like. And let's say I'm looking at this and I'm like, ooh, I don't like the way this button looks. I don't like that it's white. I'd rather it be blue. Good news. What we can do, we go back into our form, go to the style step. Let's say we want to change these colors out. I want this to be my background and the white to be the font. It'll look weird for a second, so apologies. Save that change. We're going to go to next. When I republish this, awesome, it's been republished. And guess what? I don't have to go into my form or change anything. All I'm going to do is refresh this page And looky there, it automatically updated. So that is my overview of the form builder. Thank you guys for suffering through it. I know I get to be a little bit wordy. Lastly, we just have some resources, same things you see each time. Visitor Sugar Club, Sugar Support, Sugar U, all those fun things. But thank you guys for sticking through with me. And if we have any, yes, go ahead.
Bree, can we go back to the UTM parameters slide, please?
Yes,
On
yes,
here.
yes.
We have a question around if they can use UTM parameters inside an iframe.
So within an iframe, unfortunately, you can't. It has to be directly on the page just because you need to be able to. So within the iframe, essentially, it's not actually on the page. So in order for us to be able to gather that UTM parameter, it does have to be on the page so that we can pull that information from the URL. If it's in the iframe, it's not on the page, we can't even see the URL. So just make sure that it is directly on the page, not in an iframe.
Thank you. Hopefully that helps, Jessica.
Awesome. Any other questions before we wrap it all up for you guys? I'll take that as a no.
You
Well,
did
thank
great.
you guys
A lot of
so
content
much.
today. Well done, Bree. Well done.
Well, Bree, James, thank you for a wonderful session. As always, these recordings will be in Sugar U. We also added a place in Sugar Club to for you to view these videos as well. So I will be sharing both links after we wrap up. Everybody, thank you so much for your time, and we'll go ahead and conclude the session. Have a
we
everyone.
We also have a new certification exam if anybody wants to take that as well.
You do, yes.
Woo!
Fresh off the press.
Exactly.
All righty. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.